Okay. So the live stream's up. So yeah, tonight this is Trump and the global economy, Trump and the G for sure, where we discuss issues that are important to the economy and the community. Um, so tonight we'll discuss is Sha'Carri Richardson versus Jamaica the new East Coast West Coast beef, and it's we follow sports, but this is almost transcends sports in some ways. I mean, it's created a media firestorm and it's created a lot of back and forth. I wouldn't say U.S. track versus Jamaican track, but maybe Sha'Carri versus uh, the Jamaican track and field community, and maybe much. I mean, the country at large. I'll let Torian speak more to that. But I've got obviously the stock exchange. I got Torian Mitchell here with me, and we'd like for you to subscribe to the channel, share these videos, and like the videos. I think people are using. So we'd like for you to share the content. So just give you a little bit of background about Sha'Carri. I'm a big Sha'Carri Richardson fan. Going to the Olympics, I was looking forward to seeing her. Michael Norman, who runs a 400. Allison Felix, I want to see her get a medal. And I can't think of the other gentleman's name who runs a 100 and 200. Who he didn't do very well, but I'm a
Brahma.
big. I beg your pardon.
I believe it's Brahma, right?
But
The young cat.
I was really
Yeah.
looking forward to Kari run. She has a lot of star. Ever since she was at LSU, I haven't seen her run as
Yep.
much since she's left LSU, but she kind of came onto the scene. She has a lot of personality, and she's good for the sport. She's good for the sport. If you're gonna wear your hair, blonde or blue or whatever, you better be able to run to back it up. She came onto the scene in 2019 when she won the 100 meters in the NCAA outdoor track and field event.
Mhm.
She won the 100 meters and came in runner up in the 200 meters. I think she also won in the 4x100 relay, which made her the second best performance for a woman since Merlin Ottey, which is kind of ironic since Merlin Ottey was one of Jamaica's top women track stars. I think she ran, if I'm not mistaken, but she dominated women's track for years, and the thing I remember about Merlin Ottey was that she represented the country very well. There weren't that many women on the world stage like that back then, but she represented Jamaica very well, and she seemed like she was very cognizant of that responsibility. So I'm a big Merlin Ottey fan, and when I think of Jamaican track, I think of her and not just how she competed, but how she carried herself on the track and off the track. So, but Sha'Carri turned pro shortly after her strong freshman. And when you go up to a certain level, that's when things change. Each level you go to, when you go from junior high to high school, from high school to college, and from college to the pro ranks, professional ranks, things get tougher. And you pretty much find out who a person is when you take him or her out of his or her comfort zone. So it's not about when you run your best and you're better than everybody else. What happens when you get knocked down? Do you get back up? What happens when you face challenges and when someone takes you out of your comfort zone? So Sha'Carri being taken out of her comfort zone. On the track, I think off the track, she's had some personal issues. I think she lost her mom right before
Mhm.
the Olympics. So she right was it for the Olympic trials or for the Olympics that she lost her mom? But she
Before
lost her
before
mom.
the Olympics, it was
Okay,
the week before the Olympics. Yeah.
okay. I think she tested positive for marijuana. I'm sure it's not the technical term for it, but the layman's terms for it. But I'm surprised she would have been prepared for running the Olympics anyway. I don't think anybody would have blamed her for not running the Olympics or even
Yeah.
running the Prefontaine Classic. So I don't think a devastating loss like that at such a young age. I'm not sure. I can't tell anybody what to do, but I don't think anybody would have blamed her for sitting out the Prefontaine Classic. So I'll let Torian weigh in on the goings on with Chicago, her performance at the Prefontaine, which she practically came in last place in the 100 meters. I don't think she ran the 200 meters.
Yeah, I mean, it was, well, kind of finally, and well, not finally, but, I think most of the topics are fun, but this is extra fun today. A little light. We get to get our ESPN bit on, right? Let me send in my audition tape.
But it's still something we talk about. Still something we talk
Yeah,
about.
yeah, absolutely. Much like you stated though, I honestly was looking forward. So, I have to put my bias out there. Um, I started to bring my flag with me on the broadcast, but I thought maybe that might be doing too much.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we have enough American flags.
You
Again.
know, well, I thought my Jamaican flag would
Oh,
be
okay,
nice.
okay, all right. You smoking that Ric Flair, huh?
Exactly, a nice touch. Um, so I was looking forward to one just the women's because uh, as a son of Jamaica, as a proud track and field, uh, former sprinter myself, but at this point, avid watcher. I'm an avid fan. Been watching the sport a long time. Um, so over the years, we've kind of seen the decline of the men's side, the Jamaican men's side specifically. Um, you know, Boat is retired. It just wasn't looking particularly strong for us, in my opinion. Uh, Everyone from not only Boat, but even Johan Blake, um, who, was kind of to set to be the person to take over after Boat, and if there were ever a person who could challenge Boat and certainly challenge his record, it would have been Johan Blake. There aren't any men contenders left in the Jamaican wheelhouse, but it just opened up the door for our attention to be focused because they have been doing phenomenally well. Um, really over this past year and a half, almost 2 years. Um, so Shelly Ann, who's a big home favorite, along with Shelly's kind of I'm gonna say excitement. She brings a certain spunk when she's on when she's on the track. It's kind of infectious. Like you love to see the big smile. You love to see just that she brings a buzz about her. She just has kind of a about her that makes you excited that she's excited to run. So, Elaine is definitely a more serious competitor. She certainly takes her craft just as serious as Shelly. But, Shelly has kind of taken a little bit of the spotlight in terms of the popularity um, at home in Jamaica, and certainly for Jamaicans abroad as well. So we've been excited, and this opened the door for see Sha'Carri because when I remember the first time I saw her running for LSU, her form was the thing that stood out for me. Her form, I was like, wow, this girl. If she tightened, like I knew if she tightened up her form, um, she was phenomenal sprinter. And to watch her tighten up that form over this last year or so, and just to get better and better, her times were clocking in better and better. And to get this opportunity to be an Olympian, I was actually excited because I did not want to hear any excuses that when the Jamaican women step field, I wanted the best of the best on that field. So there could be no excuses. When Shelly Ann, when Elaine, when Sharika come to shut it down, I wanted Sha'Carri in her peak physical form. I wanted her to be in the best condition possible. So because of that, I was a fan of Sha'Carri. I was one. I think like most folks watching, shocked and maybe a bit heartbroken when she spoke about her mother passing just I think a week or a few days before before she qualified for Tokyo. So, you could hear, I don't know if you watched that interview at all, um, you could hear the toughness. You could hear her inner toughness trying to push through that interview, trying to push through the tears, just the emotion, losing. And she specifically said her biological mother. I'm not that familiar with her background. It just gave me kind of a sense that maybe she wasn't raised with her biological mother, or uh, there was maybe some different upbringing. Typically the folks that I hear specify versus just mom is usually one. Were either raised by a different family member, maybe in foster care, connected, their parent at some point. But it just kind of gave me that sense that, there are some more layers there. But in either way, you could only empathize with her and hope that she could really push through. I think you could, no matter who you wanted to see win, you couldn't really hate this girl, right? You couldn't. She, much like Shelly, to me, she had that same infectiousness. When she ran, she had that excitement. Like I love seeing sprinters that enjoy sprinting. This is a tough sport, right? It's not a sport that typically gets the big donors, that gets the big
Yep.
every week. This isn't the NBA, it's not the NFL. You pretty much work in unsung, this gruesome training conditions for your one shot every 4 years. You get a little bit of sprinkle of popularity, if you're doing the pin relays, if you do world championships, nothing compared to the Olympics, right? Where all eyeballs are kind of capped on you. So, they kind of work in the dark in that. It's for me to see a sprinter who loves the sport, who loves sprinting, see that excitement. It makes me excited. It makes me want to see them run. It makes me want to see them do their best, even if I'm rooting for somebody else. And that's how I kind of felt about Sha'Carri. Just overall, she's still an impressive sprinter. But much like you stated, I actually would have rather seen her not participate in the Prefontaine Classic at all. To really take the time, it's my opinion that I think she kind of capitulated to, I think, her own prison of criticism that she ultimately created within this, beef-like state, that we're going to get into a little bit more. But I felt like it was a reaction to that. And that's
Hmm.
ultimately why she competed. But, it was just way too soon. She didn't look great. Form didn't look great. She was kind of slow out of the blocks. Yeah, she just didn't look all the way there. It seemed like her body was trying to catch up with her mind uh, on the track. And, she rightfully so kind of looked like a distracted runner. But that's, to my point that it was just too soon. It was too
Hmm.
early for her to be on that. Yeah, for her to be on that field. And this is kind of another blow that is a chip at her confidence. It's another chip at her confidence, and one that I think was just unnecessary. She didn't
Yeah.
need this. yeah, she didn't need that shot at her confidence. But we'll see how it plays out, right? If she'll be able to get over get over those issues, move past the criticism, and really just fundamentals, get back to pre-popularity Sha'Carri,
Hmm.
and be able to just focus on the running, and focus on getting better.
Well, the beef sort of started. It sort of started, even before the Olympics. I mean, excuse me, even before the Prefontaine. I think she tweeted something or went to
Yeah,
social media and said, "Do y'all miss me?" Something to that effect.
yeah.
And just like the Olympics are going on, and she wants to know, did anybody miss her? I thought that was kind of like, that's very Donna Ross of her, shall we say? And I think one of the Jamaican women, one of the Jamaican sprinters, or maybe somebody from Jamaica, maybe threw shade at her somehow. I don't remember exactly what they said, but they may have mentioned the fact that they didn't really miss her, or whatever. But I think
Right,
that
right,
got the
right.
attention. That got the attention of some people on social media. A lot of social media people on YouTube and Twitter, where they mentioned that to uh, at Sha'Carri, and people lamented. Some, I won't name names, lamented that, as African Americans, we have to take on the whole world. We have to take on Jamaica and take on another country in the high hurdles. We take on another country in the middle distances, and boxing, weightlifting. It's us against the world. And why is that? But I think Sha'Carri threw the first. I think she tossed through the first shot first punch when she said the, as if Elaine Thompson and Shelly Ann Fraser Price, they weren't enough to bring. They weren't capable of bringing enough excitement to the Olympics. And then she put together a TikTok video before the Prefontaine Classic, which I thought was kind of, I don't know, I thought it was maybe a little precocious. So, um, given the circumstances that she hadn't run in a month. I'll show you the TikTok videos if I can.
Mm.
Okay, so I'll play the TikTok video. So I thought that was pretty interesting to show that video. Given the fact that she hadn't run in a month, and I think when she qualified for the Olympics, she may have run like a oh, sorry, hold on one second. Well, in with I think in the Olympic trials, I think she ran a 10.86 to qualify.
Right.
And just from a timing standpoint, if Elaine Thompson and Shelly Ann Fraser Price are running a 10.7 or 10.6, that's not going to cut it. 10.9 is not going to cut it. I think Sha'Carri's personal best may be a 10.7 in that range. So if she
Yeah,
ran,
I think 10.74.
okay, she ran
10.74, I believe.
10.74. If she ran 10.74 at her best, which she probably
Right,
wasn't,
right,
given that she hadn't
right.
taken time off, she couldn't have beaten Shelly Ann Fraser Price or Elaine Thompson at her best. So they put together a TikTok video when she had given a
Right, right.
layoff. I thought it was kind of odd that maybe she knows something we don't. And then when she did, this girl's gonna be a star. She's gonna overtake the world. I assumed that in a couple of years she would just be the fastest because she would just get better. But like Torian pointed out, that she's slow out of the blocks, and I don't think you're gonna give these other women, uh, if you give them a step, you're not gonna make up that step. If
Right.
you give them a step and a half, you're definitely not gonna make that up. So to give Elaine Thompson or Shelly Ann Fraser Price, maybe a step and a half or 2-step lead out of the blocks, you're already behind in 100 meters. Maybe 200 meters you can catch up, but not in the 100 meters. I think that'd be very difficult. And then she probably has to work on her technique a little bit. That's what I meant about coming out of your comfort zone. That it's not about talent at this point. It's not about speed. I think that everybody, top 5, 6 women in the world have top speed. Now it gets down to technique. You
Yep.
know, coming out of the blocks, that drive phase. If that's your weakness, if your drive phase is it's your weakness, then that's something you have to work on. So technically, she probably has some things to work on, and it has something maybe has nothing to do with speed, but her technique out of the blocks. Can she get out of the blocks quicker, and can she get into her drive phase? Or stay in her drive phase a little longer, but she can't give the top sprinters in the world a step and a half lead out of the block. So I think those are the things that she needs to work on her technique, and also obviously getting rid of some of the rust from the layoff. But the TikTok video, I thought, wow, she's come with something. Apparently, she didn't. So here's her. I'm gonna show you her video, her interview.
Mm.
After the Prefontaine Classic. Okay. Okay. So here's her video. One of the videos. Anyway.
Are you able to hear the sound? I'm not, because I'm
Yeah, I can
not.
hear it. I'll turn up some.
Yeah.
How
Hopefully
about now?
I mean, hopefully, hopefully everyone else can hear it. I just
Yeah,
can't hear
this
it on
is
my end.
yeah. So so basically she's saying that the top sprinters in the world. That's not the one. That's not the interview everybody was talking about, where she was giving it right on the track, and I think people saw Shelly Ann Fraser Price walk by, and kind of was laughing. It seems like, or smiling, but she basically says that don't count me out, and
Right.
I'm still one of the top sprinters in the world. Again, given her performance, that she came in last place in the 100s, 200s, and she has maybe some technical issues. Maybe it'd be better if she worked on her technique a little bit and tried to get back and get rid of some of the rest before she returns to the track. But some of it may have been the fact that she was sought out by the media, which seemed kind of odd. I think the story should have been Elaine Thompson, and who Classic. That should have been the story. And especially coming off her Olympic victory, I think
Right.
in the top one, two, the 100 meters, and she's got a lot of media attention. She's got a lot of endorsements, from what I understand. So some of it, she may feel like she needs to put on performance to the what she has done, but now she has to back up with the performance. So attention, particularly for her sponsors, this may not be the best attention, but now she has to back it up with a performance, which I think could be very hard to do, given that again, Shelly Ann Fraser Price and Lane Thompson are in the 10.6 range, and the world record is 10.54, which was set by which was set decades ago by was it not want to say was it Jackie Joyner, not Jackie Joyner Kersey, but
Joe.
Lawrence Griffith Joyner, who set the world record and stood for decades. That's where we are. I mean, you're basically the best in the world, and they're slowly approaching FloJo's world record, which is going to be hard to, even again on her best day, will be hard for Sha'Carri to keep up with.
No, I absolutely agree. It's it's funny. I don't know if you watched the Mayweather versus Ortiz. The first time that they fought, and it was they do the Showtime specials. Kind of following
Right.
the boxers
Right.
around and the fight camps, etc. And it's funny, even if you weren't familiar with Mayweather and weren't familiar with his pedigree, and you just simply judged who was going to win based on the approaches to their fight camps, uh, that's when I knew that Mayweather was hands down winning that battle because if you watch it, I'm sure you could probably YouTube it or something at this point, since it's so old. But you saw this kid surfing, you saw him skateboarding, and I think what documentary is asking him, like, what's like, what you doing out here? And he's like, yeah, he likes to mix it up and try multiple disciplines because they translate to boxing. And it was, I don't know if they fed, like if a producer fed that to Mayweather that, hey, here's what this guy is doing. Because when it was Mayweather's turn, it was almost as if he was speaking directly to Ortiz. He said, the only thing you can do to train for boxing is box. And when you
Oh my
saw,
goodness. Oh my
when you
goodness.
saw Mayweather's fight cap, what is he doing? Hitting the speed bag, boxing, hitting the heavy bag, hitting the rope. So like sparring, all the things that you need to do to prepare for a fight. That's what he
Right.
was doing. Meanwhile, 3 times a week, Ortiz is out there on the surfboard trying to catch, trying to perfect his stance on the surfboard.
Uh,
Uh,
his core, training his core.
there you go. Exactly. And that's how I felt with, being Sha'Carri. Uh, I just see unfortunately, an undisciplined athlete has significant potential. As we stated earlier, she's one of the best in the world. Even at her worst, she's still one of the best in the world. And I think one of the things that you hate to see is wasted talent, right? If you spend any time in organized sports, you'd often get that talent versus work ethic speech from the coach in some way, shape, or form, right? You always had the guys who are talented but they're lazy. You always got the guy who isn't as talented but busts his ass to try to get to where the talented guy or girl, started and often will surpass them in some respects. And to me, that's what we were looking at. We're looking at an unfocused. Uh, you know, I understand that today is very different. You know, young people today have a very different lifestyle in the sense that they publicize everything. They openly share trials and tribulations. They openly share successes and wins. They openly share their political views. They openly share, their struggles, and it is a very different approach than I think every previous generation because no other generation like the one today has grown up being in front of a camera. There used to be a thing, and I'm sure it still exists. Maybe I even need one. Some would argue it's a media coaching, right? Where that's a whole career. You
Right.
pay a consultant to get you media ready, right? You want to smile a certain way, wear certain colors, say certain things, stay away from certain topics, present yourself a certain way, et cetera, et cetera. And these kids today are coming out of the womb being on camera. So, by the time they're 10 and 15, they've already spent the last decade or more media prepping. And that's a very different experience. So we have to acknowledge that nuance, but at the same time, it doesn't take away from the fact that, and much like Allison Felix, I'll never forget, because it always kind of resonated with me for some reason. It's not the first time I've ever heard that, but when I heard her say it, for some reason it just kind of sunk in, and I actually often think about it. When she was asked about her race, and I think this was after in it was either 2008, maybe 2012, um, and she just, her form, how she has gotten better when it almost seemed impossible for her to get better, right? You look over, you look at turnover speed, and you look at form, you look at your drive phase. And one thing that you have to consider is that when you're one of the best in the world, like you stated earlier, it's not a matter of kind of speed and power. It's inches. It's literally percentages that you're trying to improve. So you're spending months and years trying to improve 3%, trying to
Right.
improve
Right.
5%. And I don't think people understand how hyper focused you have to be to eke out another 2% out of a top performing physical body. And she, just simply stated she was not paying attention to the other runners. She just focused on her race. That was it.
Mhm.
She was racing herself. And she didn't mean it as a shade to the other women, but simply as an acknowledgement that she had to go out and run how she knew how to run, and even in the mind state of her how to run, and hope that that would be enough to get a win. You know what I mean? It almost doesn't matter where you place, in other words,
Right. Right.
because you can't do anything about the person next to you, right? You can't slow them down. You can't. So the thing that's in your control is the way you run your race. And I think that's why it always just kind of resonated with me when she said it. Maybe because how impressive Allison Felix was at that time, that it just kind of sank in for me. And even with all of the differences in the social media approaches that this younger generation take, I don't think that you can substitute, I don't think you can shortcut your way to that type of hyper focus. There still has to be a discipline where you shut away you shut away opening yourself up, because while the transparency is great, I think that's one of the things that this younger generation is bringing to the table. Yourself up for criticism that you now have to deal with mentally. And as any person, whether they're in business, whether they're in sports, will tell you, mental game. And the thing that you can't substitute, what is that self talk looking like? When you're sitting on those blocks and you're shaking out your legs, you're doing those last couple of stretches, and you're getting your heels right, you're clicking in the blocks to make sure everything is just right. What is that conversation? What are you thinking about?
Right.
As you're breathing, what is your technique? Are you thinking about the drive phase? Are you thinking about your turnover speed? Are you thinking about your form? Or are you thinking about the tweets, the interviews, the criticisms? That ability to kind of clear out your mind. And the more you open, and I feel like more she opened up herself to that, that's the position that she's putting herself in, that now not only is she battling the critics and all the folks that are on social media, but she's now also battling herself. And that's the biggest enemy, right?
Right.
So, like that for me, I think that's what it really kind of boils down to that she wasn't ready. And until she gets to that point where she can put on her blinders, ignore, I would almost even suggest just go ahead and lock up the social media. It's not the first time a big account, just shut it on down. Like, some folks erase their whole, look at Chrissy Teigen. This woman has, erased her whole social media profile only to come back to complain about not being on social media just long enough to shut it down again after more criticism.
Right.
And every time she comes back, somehow, that same day she already jumps up to a couple million followers. So it's like, folks, it'll be there, in other words. Going anywhere anytime soon. I don't think the attention is going anywhere anytime soon. The fact that she even ran a race, ran the worst race that she probably has ran in her professional career, and look where the attention was. Meanwhile, Shelly Ann and Sharika Jackson and Elaine Thompson is just simply walking by unspoken to, almost as if they didn't win anything.
Right.
If
Exactly.
they were the spectators.
Mhm.
So, it speaks to the power of attention, right? And she's getting everyone's attention, but at what sacrifice? What's the cost of that attention? And, you're only going to hold so much for so long if you continue to fail, right? You're going to be the shoulda, woulda, coulda story
Right.
instead
Right.
of the one that did it.
Got it. Got it. It's a fair point. It's a lot to unpack. I mean, I think it's a fair point about particularly what Allison Felix said, that you have to run your race. And I used to play basketball in college, and my first 3 years in college, we were sort of in a rebuilding phase,
Mm.
and it basically, you look at the schedule and just on talent basis, you could say some of these teams we just can't beat if we play our best game, and then some of the teams we can beat if we bring our A game. And some of those games came down to, it was a game of possessions, where a typical fan would say, this happened, that happened. We basically narrowed it down to like 5 possessions that didn't go that well. We missed a couple free throws. We had a couple bad possessions. You're gonna have turnovers, but mental errors you can't afford. And it just came down to a game of possession. That's how close it was. We were middle of the road, and we would lose games just based on 4, 5 bad possessions instead of a 40-minute game. It's game down to, that's the margin of error for us, that we just couldn't bring our B game and beat teams. We had to always bring our A game. And so if Sha'Carri Richardson runs a 10-7-4 every time out, how many times does she place in the top 3? Then if she gets down to 10-7, how many times does she place? That means that if she runs a 10-7, that means that Shelly Ann or Elaine have to be off their A game. So it comes down to math. If you can't get down below 10-7, it comes down to math at that point. And can she run a 10-7-4 or 10-7 range every time out, like General Motors making tires? About Carl Lewis, who was probably one of the most celebrated, if not the most celebrated, track star in the U.S., that he always performed well on the big stage. Edwin Moses was like General Motors making tires. He was very consistent.
Moses, man.
He was very consistent, and he always performed well on the big stage. He never beat himself, and his mental game was all. I don't even think he looked at the other races, other performers. Had guys shook. He had guys shook before the event. I think he kind of was very quiet in how he trained. He didn't really want anybody to know much about him or how he was training. So he was always very mysterious, and that gave him an edge. But as far as down to the bag in their mind, get the bag. That's the point. Where in our era, it's like more the bag will come. But did you secure the bag with big endorsements? But now she has to perform. And I thought that when she left LSU, I thought that was a red flag. That with that young age, the coaches at LSU,
she was ready.
Right. Well, I think when I saw the LSU team perform in the NCAA, they dominated. and they had a workman-like attitude. And when you're in college, you have a time when you get up out of bed, you have a time when you eat breakfast, you have a time when you eat lunch. It's very disciplined, and everything's planned for you. That may be what you need at 18, 19, 20. Some people need. When you're professional, you have a lot of free time, and you can train when you want, I guess, and you have a lot of free time. But in college, everything's sort of planned, and you have somebody in your ear. I think if she had put on that performance when she was still at LSU, I think she would have heard about it. I don't think she would have put on that type of performance. I think the coaches would have reined her in before then. Maybe going pro was good for her in terms of securing the bag, but it may not have been the best thing for her at her age now to given her maturity level. Maybe you need somebody yelling at you at 19, 20. So I thought that was a red flag when she went pro. I hadn't seen her run in a while. So where's Sha'Carri? Down here, found out she went pro. Well, she secured the bag, but at what cost? Now you got the bag. Are you still disciplined enough? Do you still have that eye of the tiger? Are you still hungry like you were when you first came to LSU to come out and just destroy everybody?
Yeah.
When she was at LSU, she seemed like she was hungry, and I didn't see that. I haven't seen that recently from her. Another example would be, look at Ben Simmons. He has all this money. It's on his big contract. He can't shoot a lick. It's called basketball, not track and field.
That's a new breed, man.
Simmons was dominating in LSU when he was in college, but he's like 6'9", 6'10". He's 6'9", and he has point guard skills. The thing about that size, though, is very nuanced college basketball because everybody's 6'8", 6'9", 6'10", and tall, athletic ability. They've already left college early. Those guys always leave early. So when you come as a freshman, who can really compete with you? You can dominate as a freshman because all the top sophomores, juniors, and seniors who have your size, athletic ability, they already left. So you're not really playing against the best players at your position. You follow what I'm saying? If that makes sense.
Yeah.
So you can come in and dominate. There's not that many guys in NBA, and all the guys 6'9", 6'8", 6'9", 6'10", who are physical and have a lot of athletic ability, they're playing in the NBA. So it's like almost like open field. You're almost like a cheat code college if you're if you're Ben Simmons size and you're very mobile. And he dominated in college. He can get to the rim on anybody. However, what happens when they take that option away from you? Now it comes down to chess. He's a great defensive player. He's an all-star, but he can't shoot a lick. And you can't have a player on the court who's going to play 35, 40 minutes a game. Your major ball handler who can't make an outside jump shot because they're going to make an outside shot. They're not going to let you get to the rim. Yep. They're not going to let you dunk. They're not going to let you finish at the rim. They're going to make you make that mid-range jump shot, that outside jump shot. If you can't hit an outside jump shot for what the Philadelphia Sixers want to do, go deep in the playoffs or win an NBA Finals, you can't have a guy out there who can't make an open jump shot because they're going to make him make an open jump shot. And I've never seen a team pull a hacker Shaq on a guard before. The Atlanta Hawks were down by like 26 points, and they started fouling Ben Simmons intentionally. And Doc Rivers didn't want to take him out of the game. I never seen anybody foul a guard before. The guy was shooting. He shot like well under 50% from the free throw line.
That's
and they came back and
you typically trying to avoid.
Right. The point guard is a short ball handler and going to knock down free throws late. Even his free throws, the Atlanta Hawks came back and beat Philadelphia. He's got the bag, but the guy, he's been in the league 4 years and you can't make an open jump shot. And the other thing is that the thing that concerns me about Ben is that he's gotten good at poor fundamentals. So his elbow so when you shoot basketball, your elbow should be, he's lefty, so your elbow should be square to the basket, right?
Right.
His elbow is kind of like not square. It's not perpendicular, but it's not square. So he's gotten good at shooting a basketball with elbow not square to the basket. So now you have to change his whole mechanics, which takes years to do. It's also a mental thing. Does he want to change his mechanics? Because he's gotten good at shooting that way.
Right.
So if he had stayed, think about it, if he had stayed at LSU, a good college coach, I don't know if LSU would have been the right place, but he was so dominant that it seemed like coach was catering. A good college coach would have made him work on his fundamentals and work on his shooting mechanics with broken ass games. And this is what you need to work on. You're great in all these phases, but this is what you need to work on. This is what you're going to work on. You're going to get better. You're going to sit down. So they said that when Michael Jordan played in the Olympics and that team, Bobby Knight told him in practice, you can't shoot the ball before you set a screen. So you have to set a screen before you shoot. That made him, forced him to become a good screener. And so it forced him to become a good screener and to think about the game from a chess standpoint, using the other four guys on the court to your advantage. Okay, so what happens when you can't go one-on-one all the time? And he always had a great, like, for instance, LeBron James doesn't have a great mid-range game. A good college coach would have made him work on his mid-range game and go sit down. So when you skip college, I know you want to take care of your family and all that, but it comes sometimes at a price, because a good college coach would have made you more disciplined and would have sat you down and told you things that maybe a professional coach can't do if they really depended upon you. And the fans want to know, why is LeBron sitting down? Why is Ben Simmons sitting down? And so I think it's in the case of Ben Simmons and Sha'Carri, they got the bag, but now what happens now? I mean, are you disciplined enough to work on your fundamentals? And it dresses you as a person. They punked Ben Simmons. The Atlanta Hawks punked Ben Simmons. They put him on the free throw line. Yeah. What happens now? That you should be, and you should take as a person on front. What happens when somebody punches you? Do you get back up? What happens then? And when someone, it's sort of take you out of your comfort zone, and it's sort of, they challenge your foundation, who you are as a person. Do you hit back? And that has nothing to do with track and field. It has nothing to do with basketball. It has everything to do with who you are as a person, and how you grew up. You follow what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so she's got the bag, but now what comes next? And I think track and field, U.S. track and field, I wouldn't say it's been corrupted, but it becomes soft, because now you got guys who Madonnas and haven't won anything. It's all throughout the youth sports, track and field especially. They want the accolades, haven't beaten anybody. You have people on the world stage who are hungry. I know from coaching youth sports, people before I was coaching kids in summertime basketball, they want to know the travel schedule before they agree to play on your team. So where are we going? They want to know where we're gonna get some sneakers, we'll get some backpacks. Come on, everything has a price tag to it, and they don't just play basketball for the fun of it anymore. So track and field has become, I wouldn't say corrupted, but it's become soft, because the kids they aren't like a Carl Lewis or Edwin Moses or Ronaldo Nehemiah. The guys the guys I grew up watching, they aren't hungry as them, because they want the accolades before they've actually put in the work or earned the accolades. Went on the world stage, you deserve all the accolades. You deserve to win. You can wear your hair any color you want, blonde, blue, orange, who cares? You can beat Dennis Rodman when you're grabbing 20 rebounds a night. But when you're not grabbing 20 rebounds a night, you can't bring extra attention to yourself. You know what I'm saying? So that's the attention. Right. So that's where we are with Sha'Carri. I'm a big fan. Another person I mentioned was Noah Lyles, who ran the Olympics. And he has, like, this, blonde hair. He didn't really perform as well as people thought he would either. So, so I'm going to show you a video from Shelly Ann Fraser Price when they interviewed her at the Prefontaine Classic. Let's see. Okay. So so yeah, so it's a much different vibe. When she interviewed, she was more laid back, more easygoing. Maybe because she's done this, for years. She's been on the world stage for years since she was a teenager. But she was more gracious in victory than I think Sha'Carri may have been in defeat. And so I wouldn't say she's more of a more business like because she does have a bubbly personality. She has a personality that she has a star quality, and she has a personality that I think can garner endorsements as well. I'm not sure how many endorsements she has, but she definitely has. When you compare her to an Elaine Thompson or even a Marilyn Artie, who probably were more stoic and more workmanlike, I think Shelley Ann Fraser Price has a much more bubbly personality.
Yeah,
Definitely ready for Madison Avenue.
yeah.
I don't know. What do you think about that video, Tori? I know if you can hear everything, but
So I couldn't, but I've seen that video
okay,
before before, and yeah, I watched the post race interview, um, and I do agree that I think Shelley was just being Shelley. She, we spoke a little bit to this offline, that I think one of the biggest differences, besides the maturity level, obviously there is a big difference between on a married mother in her mid 30s that is at the top of her professional game. If we strip away the cameras, and we strip away the popularity. This is, no different than someone who has spent the last 20, 30 years, whether they're a musician, whether they're an author, whether they're a mechanic, whether they're, a journeyman, an electrician. But here we're watching someone that has spent the last 20 years of their life, literally their life around perfecting their craft, right? So there's going to be a level of maturity with that person, because you're meeting that person at such an intersection, right? That they're already at the top of it, and they continue to progress. Uh, when you speak to people that have experience in their field, it's a very different conversation, right? Than when someone first starts. When they first have that excitement, even if they have a couple of accomplishments under their belt, but it's still just the beginning for them versus a seasoned person in their career. And I think that we have to view Shelley that way. That here is someone who seasoned professional. This is not her first first Olympics. This isn't her first camera interview. This is not her first medal either. So there's an expectation there. In other words, kind of the difference between her and Sha'Carri. Also, to the fact that I think this is, one of the differences, which kind of alludes to uh, the 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 podcast title, right? The beef, right? This the next East Coast versus West Coast beef. Um, I'm gonna say no, simply because I think that when you look at Shelley and Elaine included, and even Sharika Jackson, who we did it 1, 2, 3, all around. But Sharika Jackson, who I've been watching for a little while, and she's only, I believe, 2 years older than uh, Sha'Carri. She has I think, a level of maturity there that Sha'Carri has just simply not been exemplifying. And I think too, because she's dealing with added pressures because she's dealing with added outcomes from social media and essentially all of the criticisms that she's been getting, uh, kind of facing those criticisms, but equally responding and reacting to those criticisms. So when we look at the differences between a Shelly-Ann and, a much more measured approach, it also kind of speaks to a very, as I would call it, a very Jamaican attitude, a very Jamaican approach that we don't necessarily, at least in front of the cameras, dig into the he say, she say, and into the back and forth, and into a lot kind of tit for tat. And that was evidenced with Shelley. Um, she didn't open herself up in any shade or any sort of dogpiling of Sha'Carri, but rather a more measured response. And in my view, a very typical Jamaican response. She's very typical Jamaican in the sense that she just focused on the task at hand, blocked out all of the criticisms, blocked out the social media beefs, and a lot of this beef is really between the fans. It's not. It seems like they are the ones that are fueling it, fueling the back and forth with Sha'Carri and Shelly and Elaine. I have yet to really see the Jamaican women participate. It seems that the fans are kind of participating on their behalf, but I don't see them egging it on either, trying to, you know, instigate any of the back and forth. Fortunately, Sha'Carri is in a falling trap to the external fans that are fueling this back and forth. The I'll give you one moment. Seems like we're having a little bit of technical difficulty. So let's see. And Ralph, can you hear me? It looks like we may have lost you. Let me see if we can get you back on here. Ralph, can you hear me?
Thing just kind of like I
And I
don't know.
was
I don't know.
still talking, so I don't know if it.
Yeah, it was
Um,
recorded. It was recorded on the live stream, but not. You couldn't see me. Yeah, it recorded on live stream. But
because I was thinking maybe you would pop back on, so I just kept going.
that's fine.
Yeah. I guess let me know once you the live back up.
Yeah, the live stream was still going while you were talking.
Oh, even right now it's still going?
Yeah, yeah,
Oh, the whole time.
yeah, yeah. Sorry about that. I don't know what happened, but I think I
Nah,
got
no
logged off
worries.
somehow.
Okay, it happens, man. It's, we're dealing with technology. Something's gonna
Yeah,
break
but
down.
I'm sorry about that. But I could we definitely got everything you were saying about Shelly Ann Fraser Price.
Yeah, yeah. I was just, I guess, my main was that, it's a very typical Jamaican approach. That it's a very measured approach that really doesn't, leave too much room to get into any muddying of the waters. I feel like some of what Sha'Carri was dealing with is the criticisms, the pushback that she was receiving online. So, although not everyone may have been aware of what some of those criticisms were, but it showed in her response in the interview. So you just had to know kind of what was out there in order for her response to kind of make sense, to know like, well, where is this coming from? It kind of seems like it's out of left field. Whereas, not only Shelley's just professionalism, her maturity and her professionalism came through, but it's also a very Jamaican way of approaching things in a non antagonizing way. I'm trying to find the best way to sum up what that phrase means, right? Like a typical Jamaican attitude to the non-Jamaican folks, or to the to the folks that just aren't familiar with what the heck does that mean?
But if you're on top of the hill and the other person's trying to get to you, do you why you know what I'm saying? The other person's kind of flailing. Why even throw them a life raft, or why even
Right,
respond
right,
to it? It can
right,
only take you off your game. It's almost
right.
like if you're the top rapper in the game and I'm up and coming and I'm trying to get you antagonize you or troll you to respond to me, then why would you respond if you're already on top? You know what I'm saying? Because to me, I'm a big Sha'Carri Richardson fan, but on the world stage, she hasn't really done much.
Well, there you go. That's she was kind of introducing herself, but to your point, we wouldn't even know what KRS was without MC Shan, right? If
Right,
MC Shan
right,
ignored KRS One, we may never know the teacher,
right.
who the
But
teacher was.
I think the beef. Reason I asked was the new East Coast West Coast beef is because it not may not be necessarily from the participants. It could be from the fans because
Yeah,
there's so many
yeah,
tweets. There's so many tweets on social media and so many posts on social media, whether Instagram or Twitter, what have you, where you have people who probably can't run that well, are making
probably.
statements. Are making statements about Sha'Carri Richardson and about the Jamaican runners, about Jamaica in general, where you have people putting up tweets that what happens when Elaine and Shelly Ann Thompson get Sha'Carri Richardson in the locker room alone, and then somebody put up a tweet that the Jamaicans are run barefoot to the next coconut stand,
Right.
and the fans are saying this. The fans who probably never
Right,
put on a
right,
pair of
right.
track shoes. You know what I'm saying? And I
No,
think it's like that makes me cringe. It makes me cringe when people put up this type of stuff and inflames the situation. And it's not coming from Sha'Carri, not coming from any of the Jamaican sprinters. It's coming from the fans. And the fans are the ones who take this to the next level, and they believe that there's a beef, and they they it becomes heightened and out of control, and you don't know what Craig's fans. You never know what Craig's fans are gonna do. I think somebody put up a tweet that Shelly had Fraser Price looked like Lil Wayne. I think they say that
yeah, I saw that one too. I think
that
I saw.
Sha'Carri liked it or something, and
Yeah,
then
yeah,
she
yeah.
unliked it, and then that social media went wild with that.
Right.
So that when when the fans get a hold to it, it takes on another direction, and you can't.
We're pretty
It's like
much.
a wildfire, and you can't really control it. So I was
We're,
go ahead.
yeah, I was just gonna say that. I don't know if the recording caught that, but that was a part of my point. But I think the
Yeah,
technical difficulties started
it
at
got
that point.
everything.
That
It got everything that you said.
yeah, that it's really the fans. I had to. So it was interesting watching Black Twitter versus Jamaican Twitter. I think the two most powerful Twitterverse entity uh, within the whole Twitter universe. It was I laughed. I had to laugh at some of it on both sides. You know what I'm saying? What's funny is that you have these these two subsects, right? Truly, in a very real and a very material way, can dictate and often influence and move culture. Um, you know, what other predominantly responsible for 8 genres of music? Jamaica. Um, what other uh, set of essentially Africans in the diaspora that is the most mimicked, but Black Americans, the continent to Latin America to the shores of Finland. Black culture is mimicked, is copied, it is pandered to, uh,
Commodified.
they're commodified, and often in very anti-black ways that exclude black people from the very influence and culture that they're ultimately creating and moving. So this is Clash. What is this? Clash of the Titans. This is the Avengers versus the Thanos type type clashes. So we saw some unification. One thing I will say, which Rihanna can vouch for. Started off as a joke from one unknown Jamaican with a very small 1,000 folks, and just kind of tweeted out what would happen, like how long would it take us to hijack Rihanna and make the world believe that Rihanna is from Jamaica. And I saw the original tweet because I actually follow the person that tweeted that original tweet. And in less than 24 hours, we saw news, like news, not just articles, but sections, in live news, CBC. We saw it in BBC. We saw it in Germany. We saw it actually even in Jamaica, that Rihanna is Jamaican, that she's been mistakenly assumed to be from Barbados. So I literally watched, like, with the power of Jamaican Twitter, they're almost like Voltron when all forces
Right.
come together,
Right.
when that power is combined. And, so in other words, even if, and I think that probably is true for most communities, right? Even if you have clashes, you're a Southern, you're a country boy, as you like to say, right?
Right. Right.
And often, we got the country folk versus the city folk. We got the East Coast versus the West Coast. We got,
Right.
the is the urban crew. So you always have like these infighting, right? But let us be somewhere outside of, like let us leave the US and be in Germany together, and then somebody
Right.
says something about black people,
Right.
even if we were just fighting 5 minutes prior,
Yeah.
soon as somebody say something, it's like, wait a minute.
Right.
Like
Right.
we but like all of a sudden you go in protective mode. Like, nah.
Yeah. You just described.
So
You just described Afghanistan, right?
they, we definitely gotta save that for the next podcast, right?
Right. Right.
So,
Right.
when we saw the 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 criticisms of Shelley and Elaine, and especially when these women and these grown women, these are not young girls, these are not teeny boppers, these are uh adults, these are mothers. uh
That's a good point because they like I said, good crack don't black don't good black don't crack.
right.
They look real young. You can't really, you know what I'm saying? You can't really
Yeah,
tell.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So especially Shelly
They look
has a youthful, she keeps that youthful look about her. But these are grown women, right? And they've never, you can't pull up a tweet, you can't pull up an Instagram post, you can't pull up an interview where you've heard any of these women say, frankly, any disparaging remarks or comments about each other, any other competitors from any other part of the world. So throughout the entirety of their careers, they have not gotten down in the mud. In other words, I think you feel a certain additional sense, a kind of extra sense of protection, right? When it's like watching a bully, just kind of run up to somebody and knock them out simply because it's senseless, right? Because they're alone, uh, and you immediately go into attack mode against that bully as the watcher, right? The person that's viewing this, because it's like, but what did this person do to you to deserve, to be attacked, to be criticized, etc. So when the criticisms of Shelly Ann and Elaine started, Jamaican Voltron formed. And, and they collectively they did what they do, which is collectively come together and fiercely defend their own. Uh, and it really was the fans. And unfortunately, this is the part where Sha'Carri, where her generation and ultimately her age plays a part, right? Because if either of these women, whether Shelly Ann or Elaine, how active they are on social media, right? Like, I don't know what they're viewing. I don't know, you don't really see them post too much. Very exciting follows. In other words, they're not, they may not be doing TikToks and, all of this other activity, in other words, whereas this is Sha'Carri's generation. This is what she
fair
does.
point.
This is,
Fair point.
so she participated and she's responding to it. And I think in some ways, inadvertently instigating and fueling it, right? Because this is her wheelhouse as far as participating in social media. But it's still, can she do more to temper? And I think she has done in some respects where, like her comments about, um, addressing she supports black women, all black women from every country, no matter where they're from. She supports
Right.
women, no.
Right.
And I think that was
Right.
I think that was her way of addressing the criticisms, addressing some of the social media responses, and trying to be that tempered and measured person. So like we're watching a reactionary in real time, right?
Right.
In other words, but yeah, it's definitely the fans that was going back and forth. One of the tweets though from, and I think I think it was American, young brother. That tweet had me cracking up though. He said something to the effect that uh, about the criticism that Sha'Carri was getting, and it kind of started off like to all the people that are criticizing Sha'Carri's hard work and judging her. She has exactly the same amount of medals that the people that of all her critics.
Right.
Zero.
Right.
It's like, oh my God.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness.
I said, but like it's funny, but it's funny,
Right.
right?
Right.
But
Right.
it kind of speaks to the earlier point, though, that you haven't reached the mountain yet, right? But you are in front of the camera, you are accepting the accolades as if you already have. To your Ben Simmons example, right? Like
Yeah.
you secured the bag,
It's not
right?
that. I don't think it's quite that bad. I don't think it's quite that bad.
Like you secured the bag. But what have you done to keep that bag and to ensure that that bag is going to remain? But it just all goes back to the focus. So while it was funny, but it also wasn't funny, but there was an underlying truth to it. And as I've said earlier, I think at this she needs to just disable everything. Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter. Focus on your craft. Your best has been bested in a relaxed mode. We watched Elaine, like that was the thing that impressed me most about even Shelley's performance at the recent
Or
Diamond.
Prefontaine. Diamond. Okay.
She casually ran Sha'Carri's best. Elaine casually
Right.
ran Sha'Carri's best. This is when the world was stunned that Usain had time to be like, yo, look at this, look at the time, check it out. Wow, he still got, 15 meters left. It's like, wait a minute, how fast can this dude run that he
Right.
has time to slow down, take a selfie, look at the look at the clock, eat a sandwich, and then get over to the finish line. It's like, so I think that's one of the differences that I can say, and maybe it is, an American phenomenon. I can say that social media does not have the hold uh, on Jamaica as it has on Americans, just in general. It's not a part, like even the younger generation still spends less time on social media with their compared to their American counterparts. So it's not something, like it's growing, but it's still not something that has such a hold on, on the respective nation that it's such a distraction to life. It's such a distraction to accomplishing your goals and perfecting the craft. I think those who are going to be distracted, those who are going to procrastinate, those who are going to, it's not social media. Like, you would have found something else to be the distraction. It's just that social media is extremely convenient, right? But I don't think it's really, in some cases, the thing that is forcing people now to focus on it and to, forget about the things that they need to do in life, whether you're a professional athlete or simply an educator. You're a primary school teacher. You still need to perfect your skills. So, at some point you got to social media down. At some point you got to shut it down. It's addicting and as enraging it can be sometimes, but and in both directions, right? It make you extremely pissed, and then the very next second can have you laugh until tears are falling out. Um, you're kind of on this emotional roller coaster going through social media in a very short, 10, next thing you know, 4 hours have passed by without you even realizing it. So it certainly can suck you in if you're not careful. But I think that's one of the biggest differences is that it has not taken a hold within the Jamaican population as much as it has taken a hold in the American population. Which we can kind of see those results, the differences in those results, right? So again, my recommendation to Sha'Carri, because I don't want any excuses, right? When you're at the top, you want other to be at their best when you compete against them, because you don't want anything to kind of take away from that win, right? You don't want to end up like Mayweather in the sense that, Mayweather is one of the best pound for pound boxers in the history of boxing. But if you ask the majority of or a lot of folks that watch boxing, it's always a name, right?
Right,
Oh, he
right, right,
ran from this person and he didn't do it's always a but with it. Like, he didn't face the toughest fighters at their prime. He waited, and it's always some type of waffling when you mention Mayweather. It's never
right.
like even Tyson or of a definitive odds when you say Tyson versus a Mayweather, and Tyson's record against heavyweights of his caliber is freaking horrible. Homie is like 1-8. uh, but that doesn't even come into the conversation when most people talk about Tyson. Tyson gets the accolades that Mayweather actually should have, because who else? A 50-0, uh, no one. I think Lennox Lewis is probably the next closest. He just never made it 250. But
Right, right.
there's very few people, no one else that can boast what Mayweather can boast. How he got there does matter, I think, to those specific athletes. So when you're at the top, when you're looking for those folks that can also push you, right? Like
Right.
when you're that's the competitive nature, right? Like even if you hate this person's guts, like you need that energy, right? Like you need to
Right.
hate that person,
Right.
like in order to beat that person sometimes. So,
Right. Right. To get
uh,
that 10-5 for Elaine Thompson or Shelly Ann Fraser Price will likely need Sha'Carri at her best.
so I'll say they have each other, because
Okay.
what some folks may not realize is there's actually a little internal beef
Right.
between
Right.
between Shelly and
I
Elaine.
found I find that hard to believe that the
Yeah,
only
yeah,
people who
it's
run fastest in the world.
I know, right? It's not they don't talk to cameras. Is and this is my so let me preface my disclaimer, right? This is my opinion. I never got any confirmation from the coaches, not the athletes themselves. This is my opinion over my decades of watching sprinters, being involved in
Right, it's a
Jamaican
Darwinian
athletics.
sport. It's a
Say that
Darwinian
again.
sport. It's a
Huh?
Darwinian sport. They can only be number
Yeah,
one.
but way Elaine has been running this year, and there were little things. For example, so if you haven't noticed, um, typically when the race is over, everybody kind of shakes each other's hand. If it's men, sometimes they hug. The women usually hug. Um, the Jamaican women, they will kind of give you the church hug, right? They give you the side shoulder. All right, sister, it's good seeing you. All right, brother, it's good seeing you. Not trying to get
Right, right,
not trying to get off. They're like, all
right.
right, good race. However, when they are with each other, like when Elaine goes to Shelly, when Sharika goes to Shelly, then you get the full on hug. You get like there's an embracing there, right? So, and you'll notice that, like you can watch their races. If there's more than one Jamaican running in one race, you you will always see the Jamaicans embrace one another very differently than they embrace everyone else. So,
Right.
one of the things that I picked up on was the lack of that embrace as Elaine was running her qualifiers.
Uh,
Elaine, a little distant. Elaine was a little cold. Like she was very Elaine is not a big talker at all. She's very quiet. She's very reserved. She's as I've called her before, a sturdy woman. Like she comes from a certain pedigree, that I liken back to my grandmother and my great the silent generation.
so,
They were the workers, right? The folks
yeah.
that didn't complain, that sucked everything up, even if they had to work 18 hours a day, 20 hours a day, but they just grinded it out, right? Like that's kind of the work ethic and attitude that Elaine personifies, right? Um, but there was some extra grind in there. Silence. It's in turn, and I said, even the way that she was running, and I'll never forget. A couple of my boys we were talking about it. I was like, y'all peep what's going on with Elaine? I was like, I think Elaine is using this chip because all of a sudden, like Elaine at one point was the kind of gold, the accolades. She got the spotlight. Shelly was really stepping into her own. Elaine took a step back. But Shelly was the media darling, right? All of a sudden, all eyes are on Shelly. Every news article, all the attention is, oh, Shelly Ann, Shelly Ann, Shelly Ann Fraser Price. That's who's going to break Flojo's. No peep of Elaine breaking Flojo. It's Shelly breaking Flojo. And I'm just watching this disconnect with Elaine. Like she was just a woman on a mission, man. And I was like, she got a chip. And it was the qualifier where everyone had Shelly went like, oh, Shelly, because she ran they qualified for their ran a great race. And Elaine dusted Shelly by a good 5 to 7 meters in that qualifying heat. And when I saw her cross that finish line, there it is. I was like, because what she was looking for was her calm, but she needed that chip. She needed Shelly to be the one in the articles, the one getting all the spotlight, the one like she needed the people to almost forget her name in order to fuel that drive to say, I know I'm better. I'm gonna prove to y'all I'm better than our sprinter. And she just went out there and grinded, and the world was shocked if if you didn't know kind of who Elaine was, but so focused on Shelly. People like, oh yeah, Elaine Thompson. Oh yeah, we got Elaine Thompson. That's exactly what she was going for. And after this, the the if you look at the past embrace, look at the 100-meter embrace after Elaine took it. After she took off, look at how Elaine break. Oh, come on in, sister. I said, Elaine, you're not slick. I was like, I see you, girl. I see you. It's like, like to me, not only did she prove to, I don't even want to say the haters, because I think she was just kind of largely forgotten about.
Right, right.
But she proved to herself what she already knew, but she needed that win. She needed for her own psyche. So, and if you notice, since the 100-meter, boy, Elaine been breaking her own records on cruise. Woman, the beast has been unleashed. But when you're at those levels as an athlete, you need that extra oomph, that thing that's gonna really draw you out and get you across the finish line. So from that perspective, I want to see Sha'Carri do better. I want to see her at her healthiest. I want to see her at her mental best, so that when Sharika Jackson come in and take this girl, there will be no excuse. But yeah, you want to see like it's all love in that
Right,
sense.
right,
But yeah, you want to see, like you don't want any excuse. You want to
right,
see them just say, you know what? They came out, they did what they had to do, and they were the better athlete. And
right,
if Tarika comes out and she comes out on top, guess what? I'm gonna say, you know what? She was the better athlete. She was the better. She's the better woman in this moment.
right,
At the
right.
end of the day, I think that's how you want to go out as an athlete.
Exactly. We celebrate, people like Michael Jordan and these guys because they had to go through the fire.
Right.
They had to go through the fire. Like you say, Lane Thompson had to go through the fire. Without Joe Frazier, would we celebrate Muhammad Ali the way we do? He had to have a Joe Frazier and a George Foreman.
100%. Yep.
Without Shelly Ann, would Elaine Thompson be where she is? You have to have that somebody to push you. But I thought that Prefontaine Classic was, I wouldn't say it was more hyped up than the Olympics, but it was very hyped up. It was very
Oh
hyped
yeah.
up. The atmosphere was
Oh
electric.
yeah.
Uh,
It was better than the
Sha-
Olympics. The
right,
atmosphere.
Sha'Carri brought a lot of attention, and the sport needs that. The Prefontaine Classic mattered.
Yeah. It
The
did.
women's 100 matters. The women's 200 matters
Yep.
because of Sha'Carri. I think I know that she wasn't there. In terms of the race, but when it got to when people crossed the tape, but I think the heightened atmosphere, people want to know what Sha'Carri had, because she missed the Olympics. What would have happened had she been at the Olympics?
Exactly.
And I think Elaine Thompson, I think she ran her best because of the electricity in the air. I think they both, she and Shelly Ann, ran their best because, and I think the American woman also did pretty well because of the electricity in the air. You need that to fuel you to run a 10-6. But the competition can you get there? You need somebody pushing you, like just like Ali had Frazier pushing him. He had to get over that mountain to actually come back and beat Joe Frazier, even though he had been off away from
Right, right.
boxing for like 3 years. But it's interesting that when you talked about Sha'Carri previously, before you took us back to Jamaica. Um, when you talked about Sha'Carri, you said that's in her wheelhouse. What you talked about was in her wheelhouse was social media, not track and field.
Yeah, right.
You said track. You said social media was in her wheelhouse. That's sort of the point. Track and field needs to be in her wheelhouse. You know
Yeah,
what I'm
yeah.
saying? Like not the social media. She's better at social media. She may be better at social media than any any woman in her early 30s who didn't grow up on social media. But that's
Right.
not the point. She's good at getting the bag. She's good at bringing attention to herself. Now it's time to do it on the track. I think she probably needs someone like Elaine Thompson or Shelley Ann Fraser Price to take her under their wing. It's just that
Yeah.
maybe not them, but American sprinter. The problem is that there's probably are there any older American sprinters that she really looks up to? Because Sha'Carri has this otherworldly talent, and she has the bag, and she has the most attention. Is there any American sprinter who
That's a
she really
good
looks up
point.
to? You need a
Maybe.
go ahead. You need an
I was gonna.
Allison Felix. You need an Allison
Yeah,
Felix
yeah.
or what's I can't think of her first name. Richards Ross. I
Sonya
can't think of
Richards Ross. That's what I
yeah
was gonna say as
someone
well.
like
But
that to
also, Marion. Um,
Marion Jones.
yeah, Marion Jones.
But someone
Um,
to pull her aside who she respects. I'm not sure if she really respects anybody because she's faster than every American sprinter out there. But somebody to pull her aside and say, look, this is what you need to do. You need to get back to sprinting. You need to work on your technique. You need to go through the fire. We've all been there where you had to get better. And there's no
yeah.
way to do it but through training and hard work away from the spotlight. When your biggest gains are made when you're on a track or you're in a basketball court or you're in a park, working on your game by yourself. Nobody's out there.
Right.
There's nobody on social media. Nobody cares. There's nobody on social media. There are no fans out there. That's where your biggest gains are made. And we'll know whether you're working or not because they'll show up on the track. You don't have to tell us how many hours
That's
you put
it.
in. That's where your biggest gains are made away from the spotlight. And she probably needs someone like Allison Felix or Sonya Richards Ross to pull her aside and say, this is what you need to work on. Now, either you can do it or you can't.
Right.
So we'll know who you are. It's not about sprinting. It's not about speed at this point. It's about who you are as a person. And someone just made you quit.
Yeah.
You just quit
That's
in front of the whole world. And so how do you come back from that? You should be angry. You should not want to be on social media. You should take it as a personal affront. I think she actually I wouldn't say attacked Allison Felix. I think Allison Felix went on a television show, a late night show, and said that people need to rally around Sha'Carri Richardson. Sha'Carri made it seem like it was she was being fake or what have you. Allison was being
okay.
fake. But she's got a lot of spunk. She's got a lot of she likes to clap back, but can she use that as fuel on the track? That's the question.
Well,
As far as the beef, I'm talking about the East Coast West Coast beef. I was actually at this 1995 Source Awards. I had a cousin from New York, and asked him to come with me. He said no, he wasn't coming. He didn't go to rap concerts. I didn't know why. I lived in Connecticut at the time, so my roommate and I went down to the Source Awards, and I saw the New York crowd, and not the New York crowd that you see as tourists.
yeah.
I saw the Coogie sweaters and the furs and the minks. I'm like, wow. It's Madison Square Garden, and I saw a different New York crowd I hadn't seen before. And so I wasn't living in New York at the time, and so I saw when the California guys came out there, Death Row, and they were talking all that bravado. I'm like, don't they know that they're in New York? And the New York crowd was booing and getting antsy, and and that's when Suge made the statement. If you don't want your
Producers
producer
all
all
in
up in the
videos.
videos, and I'm thinking, is he talking about Puff? I'm sitting there like is he talking about Puff Daddy? Right? I said, it's like it's something he can't be talking about Puff Daddy, but he really was. I knew he was. And the people were like looking around, and they were saying, is he talking about someone from New York? And he's from LA? Does he know what he is? And I'm like, whoa, that just set the mood, man. It was like real tense. You can cut the tension with a knife. And then I think Snoop won an award or something, and people didn't
Yep.
clap. He said, "You don't have no love for us.
Snoop, you ain't got
You
no
don't have no
love.
love for Death Row."
New York.
Right. And then he slammed the mic on the ground.
Yep.
My roommate and I, like Carl Lewis, I got to it. I just started running. My roommate and I, and we drove back to Connecticut, and then we found out what happened the next day. I told my cousin what happened. He was laughing. He was laughing. So I told you not to go. But you know what I'm saying? That's, and then, when I guess when Tupac obviously had an issue with New York because he got shot in New York and got robbed or what have you.
Mhm.
And then when he was in prison, I think Biggie made the song "Who Shot You,"
Who shot you? Yeah.
which could have been interpreted a lot of different ways. And then, but when Tupac hit him up, that could have only been interpreted one way.
Yep.
And so, but the media, it was the media, the people who were writing for Source and writing for the Source magazine, and then I forgot the Vibe magazine, who were stoking it. They were stoking
Oh
it.
yeah. Oh yeah.
And they were selling
Media was
they
definitely
were selling
stoking it.
they were selling magazines. They were selling
Exactly.
magazines, and these young writers were making a name for themselves. They asked Tupac to hear what Biggie said, and Biggie may not have said anything. And they asked
Exactly.
Biggie, "Would you hear what Tupac said?" And it kept going back and forth. And I actually grew up with I went to elementary school and high school with the Lady of Rage, and she was a member of Death Row at the time, and she put Farmville on the map, my hometown in Prince Edward County, and she gave us a shout out at the end of her record. For real, that's the deal. Straight out of Farmville, VA. So what you got to say? So she put us on the map, and she never forgot where she came from, and everybody was riding for Rage. We were waiting for the album to come out, and I think her album may have gotten hung up over this back and forth with the East Coast, West Coast.
Yeah, it
But we
did
definitely, I
actually.
think everybody was waiting for the album to come out. It never did. But I think again, the fans can make these make it difficult. They stoke it. So you can have someone from California, from LA back then, make it difficult for them to come into New York, or vice versa. When Biggie went out to LA, we know what happened when he went out to LA. So I think it's the fans who take these things to another level. And I'm not that big on social media, but when Sha'Carri likes a video, somebody's got a YouTube video within a couple hours
Right.
saying that Sha'Carri liked a video where maybe someone dissed Shelly Ann Fraser Price. So all these videos out here, and people on social media, on Instagram, on Twitter, they're following this stuff. And it's kind of like I kind of catch it on 7-second delay, but I hate to see these athletes should be celebrated. I hate to see these snide comments. I
Yep.
think it sullies. We're probably watching. When's the next time you're gonna see a Shelly Ann Fraser Price?
Right.
She's sort of towards the end of her career. When's the next time you're gonna see someone at that level? The way I talked about Marilyn Oddie. She was an icon,
Yep.
and she represented Jamaica very well for decades. And she was an icon, still is. And so when's the next time you're gonna see Elaine Thompson, someone running 100 meters at this level, 10 in the 10.6 range, and couldn't run into a sub 10.6 because FloJo's record stood for decades. So these athletes should be celebrated, not ridiculed, and not. I think it should be about the race and about the hard work these people are putting in the performance that they put on. Because I haven't watched I don't remember watching sitting through a
Prefontaine
Prefontaine class
class.
in a long time.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that was that was again, you said it was probably bigger than the Olympics, and
I think it
Sha'Carri
was. It was to your point about the electricity. And you reminded me. I was like, oh man, I hope she don't end up like Michael Johnson. So you remember the Johnson versus Bailey race.
Donovan.
Yeah, yeah,
What
Donovan
happened?
Bailey out of
What
Canada.
happened?
Well, Donovan Bailey won.
Uh,
Because you right with the golden Nikes. pulled up for the second time. I'm not saying that it looked mad fishy, but
Yeah, it's hard to run if you pull a hamstring, right?
no, right.
You know, I actually saw Michael Johnson in New York one time. I was in Manhattan, right outside of Grand Central,
Oh yeah,
and somebody was jog past me like a blur. I said, "That Michael." Literally, I said, "That's Michael Johnson."
nice.
He like a blue streak just right past me. And the
That's
reason I
funny.
didn't know if it was him because he looked so big on TV. He's actually pretty skinny, just kind of like real cut up.
Yeah,
But he looked
he's
real
very
big on
cut.
TV, but he's very
Yeah.
skinny. He's very
No,
skinny. But
yeah, that's what it. If you remember that. And I was like, interestingly enough, so I was a fan of both, but at the time, I gotta say, I was a Michael Johnson fan. So although Bailey is Canadian by nationality, but he's Jamaican uh, by ethnicity and culture.
yeah,
Uh,
According to Jamaican Twitter.
well, this is pre-Jamaican Twitter.
Okay, okay.
Thank
Everybody's
God.
from Jamaica.
Thank
Hey,
God.
Michael Jordan's from Jamaica.
Because Jesus, the way that the two of them were going now, that's a beef. Like that was a real beef because they were actually going at each other in the media, using the interviews to take shots at each other. And this was at a time when the East Coast, West Coast beef was happening. So thank God Twitter did not exist. Or somebody might have ended up shot at that damn at that damn meet
Well,
between
they
them
were
two because it was a feel like I don't know if you remember like how fierce it was, but they were like they Bailey genuinely hated Johnson. Like he genuinely hated that dude. And I think it was really a media construct that the two of them ended up clashing the way that they clash. I think Bailey and honestly, I think a little bit of it was some jealousy. The fact that the same things we're bringing up with Sha'Carri, right? That he's the 100-meter winner. He's the fastest man in the world. The title of always gone to the 100-meter sprinter, not the
right.
200. Johnson was the man at 200 and 400 meters. The um, so the attention, Johnson kind of took over as the golden boy. Carl Lewis passed the baton to Johnson. Clean cut, well spoken, media trained. He was not a worry off camera. He was the quintessential media, the black media darling for the country. So,
But
he got
I don't think Michael Johnson was naturally flamboyant or had a natural. He didn't have the
oh
flair
no,
that
he wasn't
he didn't have the flair that
poignant.
a reason I said that because he didn't really have the
The
charisma
swag.
swag or charisma that a Carl Lewis had. But
Yeah.
and so they stepped into a void left by Carl Lewis. So I think they had to. I wouldn't say they had
Yeah.
to, but it had to been kind of more manufactured because you don't have to. Carl Lewis doesn't have to make anybody hate him.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? It doesn't have to be manufactured. So it seemed to me that Michael Johnson, that it wasn't necessarily his personality, but it seemed like some of it was a little manufactured. But uh, I mean, he was you know clean cut and all that, and
right.
he did have the golden
He
spikes.
even had that little twang when he
Right.
spoke. So, he listen, he was everything that the media needed him to be at that time. And then if you remember, this is really a part two because remember, like you brought remember Carl Lewis and Ben Johnson.
Right.
Remember
Right.
Ben Johnson, also Canadian,
Right.
also, but they were both running, the same race. So both running 100-meter. And Ben Johnson. it was obvious that he was on steroids because he was like 5'8", 120 pounds soaking wet, and then he showed up 3, 280 running a sub 10. It's like,
Right,
okay,
right. But there wasn't. Yeah, that's a good point you make. But there wasn't. Because you even look at back at what's it, Corey from Jamaica,
yeah.
who dominated before Usain Bolt. He was the most celebrated Jamaican sprinter ever. Probably he dominated the short events in the mid '70s, early '80s. Right. So Jamaica has so it's not. I think it would be odd not to have a Jamaican in the top 4 in the world every year, in the women's and the men's every year.
Yeah.
But so Jamaica has a history, a story history of sprinters, but not Canada. And so
Well,
it was like,
most of the people in Canada are immigrants anyhow. Large
right,
that's
right.
Canada's
I understand.
economy is
I'm not
built on.
talking about the heritage. I'm talking about just the track. They don't have the track
Yeah.
tradition.
So
And so it's almost like when Ben Johnson beat Carl Lewis, it was like he had to be on steroids because he's from Canada, right?
exactly.
And the same thing about like Donovan,
where I was going with it.
like Donovan Bailey's like this can't be real, right? He's from Canada, right?
Like, and remember the fuss that Carl Lewis kicked up about, like, and had a hissy fit. Like, he had a grown man tantrum that
Right.
somebody beat him. It's like, no, is no way. It was almost like in his mind, is no way that anyone could rightfully beat him because his name is Carl Lewis. It's like, did you not realize that when you got on those blocks that my name was already imprinted in the on the gold already before?
Right.
Like, in his
Right.
mind, it's like, wait, well, the person that was, his name is not Carl Lewis, so that's the problem. It's like,
Right.
so, Donovan.
He was Carl Lewis was over the top. I mean,
Yeah, man, Carl, like,
he was good. He was good for the sport, but it was like
one
if
day
people
I'll
just
tell you
show
my
up,
little,
people just show up to beat Carl Lewis. People just show up to beat Carl. It's not like you hope he doesn't lose because you don't want him to pass out here.
nah,
You know what I'm saying?
one day I'll tell you my little story about meeting Carl Lewis too, with the New York track team. But that'll be a later. But I'll just say, Carl Lewis is exactly the person in person as he was on TV.
Right.
I'll leave it at
I
that.
believe it.
But
He was good for the sport, and he made a lot of people a lot of money. Everybody else around him because that's before social media. There was no Twitter to so.
Well, that was the whole point too, right? Because that kind of fueled the Bailey Johnson beef, and they had actual beef amongst each other. So, we fast forward to Sha'Carri versus, I guess, Jamaica. She kind of pulled Johnson, right? But
Right.
I hope that she does better than Mike because we never got that rematch, right?
Well, Michael Johnson, I don't remember. I don't know what
he was up for a rematch right after that loss.
Right. I don't know what time. I don't know what time that race came on, but I would got up at 4 a.m. to watch that. The whole world was
funny.
watching.
I don't remember what time it was. Like, I do remember it being at night, and I
remember like a lot of hype.
Like,
I remember like a lot of. I remember a lot of hype. I remember like a lot of hype, and then
we
like
watched that as a family. Maybe like 14 of us around the TV.
like the last Cosby show.
Exactly. Like, it was
the end of Cheers. The end of Cheers.
And I remember Donovan, like, I remember how pissed he was. And I think for me, that was the first time I realized that he needed, and just in general, that concept of athletes needing,
right,
needing that competitor that's going to drive them. So he was pissed. Like, I don't know if you remember, like, Bailey was like hitting the wall, like punching the wall, and like, this is some bullshit. Like, he was flipping out because he's like, you cheated me,
right,
of this win.
Right.
by like although he won, like he begrudgingly accepted it. And he immediately wanted a rematch. Like, nah. Like, don't even count them numbers. Like, let's go at it again. Michael Johnson agreed to a rematch. But then what, I think 6 months later he announced his retirement.
Right.
Man said I'm out.
Right. But
So
I know I was like, what in the world? What all this hype for what? This is a
yeah,
total waste of
yeah.
time. It was only lasted like a couple seconds before he pulled up, right? And that was it.
Yeah, he was in, but the thing, so he was already getting beat. It's like, come on, fam. It would be different if that hamstring happened and he was getting beat the entire race. He got
Right. I
beat
understand.
out the
I understand.
blocks. He got
I
beat.
understand.
So
I understand.
it's like I feel like if you look at the race, right? Like if you look at it, when he pulls up, to me, I felt like it was a cop out because typically, if you are not within a certain range, like if you get beat in that first 30, you're done. Like
Right.
it's a wrap. Like it's over. You literally might as well just stop running at that point. And that's when he gave up. Like he gave up
Right.
when he already knew for a fact that he is not catching this man. He's nowhere near, not even anywhere that would be a decent argument 30 years later,
I understand. I understand.
like the barbershop argument. But, and if, nah, man, like it was just hands down. He was getting his ass handed to him.
Right.
So I feel like that was
It's
why
better
he
like
pulled up.
right. It's better just pull. I guess it's better just pull up and let people speculate whether you faking or not.
Exactly.
Then to
Like,
run your best race, and get beat by 3 steps.
no, nobody
But
was believing it. Not even the
yeah, yeah, yeah,
media.
yeah. But
Not
yeah,
even the media was like,
yeah. But
come
he
on.
that was that was cold. That was cold what he did to Donovan Bailey. He robbed him.
Even
You robbed him. You just Donovan Bailey from Canada. You're never gonna be Donovan
exactly.
Bailey who beat
Even
Michael Johnson.
what's his
Right.
name? Not Bob Costas, but I can't believe I'm blanking on his name. The only other black, the only other black dude on NBC.
Not Brian Gumble.
Yeah, Gumble.
Brian Gumble.
Even Brian Gumble.
Brian Gumble.
Even
Brian
Brian
didn't call him
Gumble was like,
a
come
sellout, did he?
on. He was like, he's like, they watching that clip. Even Brian Gumble was like, cap. What the kids say they name? Big cap.
He
Like,
capping. He capping. But I mean, come on. Like as far as Sha'Carri Richardson is concerned, I mean, if she had ran as fast as she could and came in 5th place,
yeah.
you know what I'm saying?
Yep. Yeah,
Could you
that's
imagine what that? Could you imagine? She out there. She when she did an interview, her hair was still intact. She wasn't. She didn't sweat whatever, her paramount or whatever.
right,
Her
right,
hair was
right,
still. She
right.
wasn't sweaty. She wasn't sweaty. Nothing. Then she begged. She begged off the 200. What she
That's
should have done. Nobody would have. Nobody would have again blamed her for
faulted
not
her.
for skipping the Prefontaine.
Yeah.
But I mean, she pulled up and came in last place, and I guess that's better than coming in 5th place running your best race, running as hard as you could. Come in run like a 10.99 or something.
Yeah, I mean, I want to see her. I don't want to see her pull a Michael Johnson. I want to see her. I want to see her get back into peak condition. Because unlike Michael Johnson, he got some medals. He had some medals by the time he met Bailey. He had his own shoe because he was already considered fastest man in the world at
Right,
that point. He already medaled in the 2 and the 400.
right,
So I want to see Sha'Carri do well. So that way when he gets back on those blocks as the best, um, if she wins, she can talk her shit. Like at that time she can talk it or not talk it, but she
yeah,
can
but
even know that she did the work to be the best, and she's herself, and not only the world, but herself first. That she truly she's truly deserving of being called the best and the fastest woman on the planet.
Well,
Um,
we all know as athletes, you ran track. I mean, I played sports growing up. At some point, again, you have to face your fears. And that's the thing about
yep,
sports. And you
yep,
have,
yep,
and you're doing it in front of everybody. That's why everybody doesn't run track.
yeah.
Because nobody wants to get embarrassed on the track. Nobody wants to get embarrassed on a basketball court.
There
And you
you
can
go.
go home and crawl in the bed, or you can go back out there. But you have to face your fears. You have to come out of your comfort zone. That means for her, I think, to get better technically.
Yeah,
And
100%. 100%.
you can't give away a step and a half outside the blocks in
Nah,
100 meters. It's not gonna work.
unless you Usain Bolt, because his starts were trash. Like Usain was like that's the crazy part is that Usain
It was better.
starts were
It was better than
trash.
Carl. It was better than Carl Lewis. It's Carl Lewis. He.
That's true, actually. Yeah, Carl
But
Lewis was
it
not a
was
great
like
starter.
yeah, everybody thought what would happen if you had someone who had Carl Lewis's top speed,
Right.
but
Yep.
didn't had a decent start. And that's
Yeah.
just saying that's just saying Bolt.
Yeah. Well, I would say no. I would actually give that to Maurice Green because remember Maurice Green when he did the first when he clocked was it like 986 or 984
Hmm.
because Maurice Green was a technician
Okay.
on that field. He was a technician from start to finish. I don't know who I was talking to, but it was the era of the bulked up, like
Right. I
this
understand.
was the era of the jacked sprinter, right? I think not Donovan Bailey, but I think Ben Johnson kind of brought that aesthetic inadvertently into sprinting. But Maurice Green, homeboy, he was top heavy, he was jacked.
Right.
But to see him
Right.
move and have that top heavy torso, but looking at his look he was a technician through and through, man. So I would have to give that to Maurice Green. And although he could never best Maurice Green on the big stage, but Alto Bolton, I think, kind of shadowed Maurice Green a lot in just coming oftentimes second and third place to Maurice Green, but I think he kind of learned from Green in the same way, and now you kind of see it in his
Right. Right. Right.
because he's of his experience that he learned being at that level now to the younger generation, these younger sprinters. So yeah, like I think I have to give it to Maurice Green that he was a technician at the beginning and the end. Um,
But
yeah,
the one thing about Carl Lewis and Usain Bolt, they both ran the 200.
right.
And I think
Uh-huh.
Usain Bolt may have run the 400 at some point when he was in high school, right? So
He did.
so that means that after the first 50 meters, he's going to get stronger. So if you don't get him
Yep.
at the start, it's a wrap because he's going to
Yeah.
get stronger.
Yeah.
While you're decelerating, he's accelerating. And the thing with Carl Lewis, while you're decelerating at the 50-meter mark, he's accelerating because he also was a master in the 200.
Correct.
So they were much stronger than a typical 100-meter runner
Those reserves.
who's
Yep.
gonna decelerate after the first 50 meters. But okay, so yeah, I think in my opinion, I just hope that a lot of rhetoric dies down between Jamaica and the U.S. I don't think it will, but I hope it's more focused on these athletes who should be celebrating, not what I'm saying,
Yeah. Yeah.
not the contentious language, and especially well again the fans who can't run that well seem to be the ones stoking this. But
Yeah.
that's sort of my take. That's sort of my take on Sha'Carri versus Jamaica. I think it should be Sha'Carri versus Sha'Carri, and can she run her best race? Hope she can get it run a 10-7 at least. The start would be to run a 10-7 every time out. That should be her first goal, and then hopefully get a sub 10-7 at some point. That's my
Yeah. I
take
mean,
on it.
I think we did it all, and I think you've done a perfect job, wrapping it up. Because that the same that I want to see Shakari healthy. I want to see her. I want to see her get in an emotionally, psychologically healthy place first. So I feel like that's where her biggest battle is going to be. Um, about the sprinting with her anymore. I think it the inner demons that she's going to have to battle, fight, and overcome to be able to give her the room to be her best on the track. And maybe being on the track is her way of fighting through. Some folks that are top of their game in their respective talents often have a drive, work ethic that almost seems to be unmatched, right? Because they just keep day in and day out, no matter what's going on in their lives. Personally, you almost wouldn't know that anything's going on in their life because they're at it every single day, with almost without interruption. But one of the things is often overlooked is that those folks are able to do that day in and day out. It's because it's also their therapy. So when they are working through those personal issues, they go to the thing that they do best, right? They focus on the thing that they love doing. And maybe track is that for Sha'Carri, in other words, uh, to help her work through those inner demons, and personal tragedies that she's, but using that to fuel her focus, using that fuel to heal, and to just get her mind clear so she can get healthy physically. And like I said, I want to see this girl at the top of her game, so that one, when she, because I do think that if she gets on that track, she wins something. Now what, that's a different conversation, but I think she'll win something. Uh, but I definitely want to see her at her best, because if not for nothing, her best is going to continue to fuel even the women of Jamaica's best, to continue to be that benchmark for them to say, hey, there's somebody across the pond who's training extra hard while you're sleeping, while you're being late, while you're being unfocused and uncommitted, and getting those under 20 girls that are already some of the fastest. So just putting it out there that the next generation, even behind Sharika Jackson, is already setting world records. Just throwing that out there.
Right.
But I want Sharika or Sha'Carri to be the reason girls continue to do their best, because they know that else that also is going to be pushing them to their best, and to continue to fuel, in other words. So yeah, that's kind of my 2 cents for Sha'Carri. So all in all, I want to see her well, and I do genuinely, just wish her the best and want to see her mental place. And I think maybe cutting off is the way, maybe the way forward for her to do that.
Okay. Well said. So this is Trump in the GE. This has been Trump in the GE. Sha'Carri versus Jamaica. I hope you enjoyed it. So we're back in a couple of weeks. So um, looking forward to. I haven't been this excited about women's